My one-on-one conversation today is with Dr. Robert Weil. He's also known as the sports doctor. Dr. Weil has worked with some of the world's best athletes, and you can check out Dr. Weil on his weekly radio show on Healthy Life Radio every Wednesday from 3 to 4 p.m. Central Time. You can also check out past episodes of his show at sportsdoctorradio.com. It is my pleasure to welcome to the Round One Golf Podcast, Dr. Robert Weil. Doctor, how you doing?
Hey, I'm good. You could call me Dr. Bob. It's easier. It's a pleasure to be on your show, Todd.
Oh, thank you, sir. I want to talk to you about sports-related injuries. But before we get started, tell us a little bit about your background.
Okay. Again, I am a sports podiatrist, so I specialize in the role of the foot. So I've had the opportunity, Todd, to see many great athletes. Most of my interest involves the young adolescent athlete. Again, having done radio for a long time, we cover everything. So the role of the foot affects everything. And again, we'll talk about lots of different aspects of, what's the best shoe for you to be in? What about your long-term foot or ankle problems? So on my show, we sing the song, the foot bone's connected to the ankle bone's connected to the backbone. But that's probably a prejudiced side of sports podiatry.
So you mentioned that you work with some of the world's best athletes, and I'm looking at your bio, and you said you worked with some of the Chicago Bears as well back in the day?
I did. I put orthotics in Jim Harbaugh's shoes. I put orthotics in Jim McMahon's shoes. I was very fortunate, Todd, I still am in some way, but one of the world's great sports trainers and sports therapists, Bob Gaida, was a guy that people and athletes from all over the country would come to see to rehabilitate, to be quicker, faster, stronger. Now they're a dime a dozen. Back in the late 70s, there weren't many. And I was the podiatrist associated with Bob, so I often had an opportunity to add orthotics to the mix. Billy Buckner was an old Chicago Cub we saw, Gary Fensick, and I'm dating myself, but it's no less important today than it was then with, seeing some of these very active young boys and girls. Now you'll see serious golfers who are adolescents who are swinging a club, 1,000 times a week. Their body better be ready for it, for example.
Oh, I agree totally. And you mentioned Billy Buckner. Just a quick story. He and I are from the same hometown up in Northern California. So he's quite a legend. Yeah.
A class act. Although I'm not going to take the blame for his high top. Although we talked about it. Billy wore my orthotics, I bet you 10 years. And my son went to, so he helped out Eric Soderholm, who the great Chicago White Sox hitman. Sure. They used to train together with Bob Gaida. And Billy would participate in some of Eric's great baseball camps. And my son was 10, 11, 12 years old and went to some of them. And Buckner, quiet warrior, great player, and then he went through that craziness in Boston.
Right.
I haven't spoken to him in a long time. I'm going to use this as an excuse to try to send him an email.
Okay. I know that if you play sports, obviously injuries are probably inevitable. But that being said, what can one do to help prevent certain types of injuries?
Great question. First of all, Todd, there are two types of injuries. There's acute injuries. Wow, it just happened. You stepped in a hole. You got hit with a ball. Wow, it just happened. There's also the much more common overuse or chronic or repetitive motion injuries, where somebody, again, might be saying, with their son or daughter, I don't know what he did, but his knees are killing him, or I don't know what I did, doc, but boy, my heels are really hurting me. So oftentimes we'll see that understanding that there's a difference. So that person's particular history, like yours, hey, Todd, you got a history of foot ankle problems, you got a history of back problems. Starting there is a great way to stay out of trouble, and then get under the proper supervision personal trainer, good physical therapist who could really at least give you some good body strengthening exercises to try to stay out of trouble. And again, podiatry, what's the best shoe for you? Foot mechanics are a major key. 80% of the trouble I see are with pronated or flat foot type common scenarios. I got shin splints because of my flat feet. I got low back pain because of my flat feet, et cetera, et cetera. So staying out of trouble means take a look at your own history. If you've got a history of problems, check it out. You're not going to be a runner, Todd, if you got arthritic knees. You know what I mean?
Right, exactly.
Right. So, and then getting on a good, sensible strengthening program. Staying fit, people being fit is a big deal. And if you're not in the right shoe and you're not even fit properly, you're asking for trouble.
Yeah, I guess I know with every sport, if you don't have good feet, you pretty much you have no future if the feet aren't right. Would that be an over exaggeration?
Well, it might be a little exaggerated, but the feet and ankles are complicated mechanisms, and they're your first ability of shock absorption. Every time you change direction or you explode, let alone walk around, your feet and ankles are concerned. So one of the things I add for all your millions of listeners, Todd, I don't care what your sport is, work on your balance and strengthen your feet and ankles as part of what you do.
Okay, that's good advice. And let me ask you a question now. This is a golf podcast, and there's been a lot of injuries in golf, mainly dealing with the back.
Yes. Well, again, that doesn't surprise a lot. I spent a lot of years working with Paul Calloway, not Callaway Golf, but Paul Calloway was one of the first physical therapists on the golf tour, Todd. He ran the sports wagon that followed these players around, Jack Nicklaus, Arnold Palmer, Gary Player, and he developed various programs as the first surprise was, wow, golfers are athletes. Right?
Right.
I mean, you're not running up and down the court, but you are walking on uneven surfaces, and again, the golf swing is brutal. So you need to know what you're doing, and you need to combine good technique, where you are working with a golf teacher pro who could give you and help your technique. And then Paul Calloway many times would give people all sorts of exercises, Todd, proper stretching. And the biggest thing he would say with golf was, you got to warm up.
I know that firsthand.
And Paul runs a golf institute here in Illinois, and he deals with top teenagers because you already see, like we do in figure skating that I mentioned, or gymnastics, we got these prodigy sports. So when we're dealing with these young kids, then we try to make sure that, because overuse injuries, Todd, repetitive motion injuries of using the body the same way, we would like kids to play different sports, but some will specialize, and,
Sure.
and golf's one of them.
Absolutely.
Especially your neck of the world where the weather's nice. Somebody's playing year round, and and we say, geez, the elbows, wrists, shoulders, but lower extremity, the back, knees, many times feet and ankles, again, can be part of problems with people who play a lot of golf. Something we call plantar fasciitis, Todd.
Yes.
Yes. Plantar fasciitis is the most common. It's the arch in the heel. It's the most common thing we see in active people. We're not talking pros. We're talking people who are just active. So many times we see that that's a problem. So at least including paying attention to your feet, making sure that you're at least in the right shoe that's comfortable for you. Golf shoes have come a long way, baby. They really, really have. Now you see virtually a sports sneaker with cleats.
Yes. Yes.
This is what you see, and it made a lot of sense. Even though, again, the good structured golf shoe is still many times the way to go, and lighter isn't necessarily better. But now there's lots of choices. But it shocks a lot of people, Todd, that about 7 out of 10 of us are not fit properly, no matter what our sport is.
7 out of 10. Huh?
So, right. And that goes for your kids, too. You know, you want to be in a shoe that at least is designed for the sport. Although I used to play some golf in Birkenstocks. I used to think it was all right in that regard. But, again, people have to understand that, you know, golfers are athletes. Take a look at Tiger Woods, and we're rooting for him. The big question in sports medicine is, you know, will he hold up?
Right.
Will he finally be able to at least play consistently without having to back off? But many times we see, you know, and Tiger probably overdid it as far as being an athlete. You know, he'd do a lot of running. He would do a lot of jumping around. He wanted to lift weights. And a lot of people in golf said, hey, back off.
Actually, Doc, that actually leads to my next question. If you look at today's golfers and their physiques, they certainly look different than, say, the golfers from the 60s and 70s. Can the fact that these guys are so built physically lead to more injuries? Can today's golfers be too fit?
No, can't be too fit, but he might be too overdoing it, be pushing the envelope regarding, again, being fit and, you know, being strong or being healthy, sometimes a little bit different nuances. Many times the question is, and I'm trying to remember the world champion for a week and a half during Tiger Woods' reign, who became the best in the world, got himself in great shape, and you never saw him again.
Oh, you're talking about David Duval, probably.
Bingo. Yeah, I knew you'd remember. That's a great example of it's possible to overdo it. On the other hand, you take a look at a Phil Mickelson, who, even with his disease, that psoriatic arthritis, which is a serious joint concern, how well he's done, but how he is, you know, today you don't have almost any golfers who are not saying, I gotta train seriously. Now, training doesn't mean more swings.
Explain that.
Training many times means all sorts of different strengthening. Every golfer I see, I tell them to do balance, or her, I tell them to do balance exercises along with what they're doing. Just imagine yourself standing on one foot.
Right.
Imagine yourself standing like on a mini trampoline or one of those tilt boards. It's a very, very safe, very dynamic way to strengthen your back and your hips because you're working all the stabilizers. So I don't care if you're 80 years old. You could stand on a tilt board. Just hold on.
Okay. And that seems so simple, too, that everybody should incorporate that.
Yeah, if you told me, though, but this kid, Doc, he's the best. This is the best 14-year-old in the country. What are some of the exercises you think they should be doing? I sure as heck wouldn't be running and pounding. We would be looking at balance and those kinds of exercises, and rubber band and elastic band work usually are very, very productive. You know, for example, Todd, if you're a golfer, we would say we want you to work the opposites.
What does that mean? It
means strengthen the muscles that they're opposite from what you're doing.
Okay.
The ones that slow you down, the ones that work on your core and hip strength. So if every golfer at every level included a visit to a physical therapist, personal trainer, you know, would you give me a good program that I could strengthen all of these areas, then you're a smart golfer.
Oh, okay. Well, I assume that works for the amateur weekend golfer as well, correct?
Works for the superstar.
Yes.
Sure does. Now, by the way, Todd, you know, we talk a lot on the Sports Doctor on the mental game. I have sports psychologists from all over the country. I have mental trainers. I had Rob Andrews was on a few months ago. And again, people, if they go to my website, Todd, sportsdoctorradio.com. They can go back and pick and choose what they might want to listen to. But Robert Andrews, who he owns the Institute of Sports Performance in Houston, Texas, he worked with the gold medalist Simone Biles. He's a mental coach.
Okay.
And he worked with the members of the girls' gymnastics team, and boy, did he get some notoriety.
Yes.
So I've had sports psychologists on my show on and off for years. Anybody who plays golf, that it's a mental deal.
Yeah, between your ears is
so we talk about that a lot, as well as the nutritional side and whatever. But preventing injury, trying to stay out of trouble, is one of the main things we're paying big attention to on the Sports Doctor. And I would tell you that no matter what your level is, or no matter what your age is, you want to, can I stay out of trouble? And how could I be 2 steps quicker?
Well, yeah, I mean, I guess on the golf course that speed doesn't really matter. But I take the gist. Now, before we kind of wrap this up, tell us a little bit more about the Healthy Life Radio show that you host.
Okay, Healthy Life Radio, Todd, is about a 15-year-old Manhattan Beach, California network with over 40 hosts. They're a 24/7 network on all sorts of holistic and natural and other kinds of things. I've been with them about 3 years. My show is live, but they have everything from relationships to holistic physicians to astrology, et cetera, et cetera. But their moniker, which I when I went to New York and I met them at this what's called National Publicity Summit, they call themselves All Positive Talk Radio, Todd. So that alone is kind of cool.
Right.
But again, I do an hour a week live on Wednesday afternoons. And again, I have guests of all types and all sorts of different areas. And again, people could see those different examples. I like to think of my show as an entertaining, informative, educational piece where we talk a lot on concussions and football, and we talk a lot about childhood obesity. But mixing in through the mix is the importance and the role of the foot and sports podiatry. If you look hard, you'll find it in the Sports Doctor, Todd.
And I'm looking at your bio here, and it says you also host you talked about childhood obesity. You co-host a show, Kids Beating Obesity, with Rick Osborne.
Yes, we did. It was a closed project. I am associated with a genius program, Rick Osborne, who created what's called Pull Your Own Weight. People go to pullyourownweight.org. They will read about the simple process that if your child could develop the ability to do an unassisted pull-up, they can never be obese, no matter how you measure it. And Rick and I did about 45 in 2011, 2012. We did about 45 half-hour-long podcasts called Kids Beating Obesity, and they could find it again on my website. But we had people from all over the world talking about this incredible challenge of childhood obesity. It's not news to anybody what an epidemic it is. And the opinions and nutrition and et cetera. But for years we've talked about how that pull your own weight can make a difference. It's about preventing childhood obesity. Now, again, as a foot ankle doctor, heavy children have discomfort in their feet, their ankles, et cetera. Growing up with obesity-related health problems, Todd, are a nightmare. They're endless in their expense.
Yes. Diabetes
and blood pressure problems, et cetera. So, yes, people can check out some of the Kids Beating Obesity, but it's a 45 podcast album.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, I think when we think about childhood obesity, we just think the U.S., but you're saying it's a worldwide problem.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. And I also wrote extensively, and people could find it on the website, Todd. It was called Let's Get 'Em Walking. And it was a proposal for all schools nationally, from grade school to high school, to include a half-hour walking, rain or shine, cold or hot, year-round, that would be a great way to battle this scourge of childhood obesity. But getting the schools sometimes to change anything, good luck to you.
Yeah, I know. It's
just
it's
difficult.
Tough.
We were talking about that, Todd, during the time, school systems are cutting back on PE. But we've come a long way in that regard. But the adult population and obesity-related stuff, the diabetes, is a epidemic with a capital E.
Oh, I know that for sure. Well, it sounds like you're doing great work, Doc. I appreciate you coming on the show.
Hey, I'm glad we connected. Pleasure.
Absolutely. And anything else you want to say before closing?
Oh, that'll do it, Todd. It's been a pleasure. I'll catch you the next time around. Hey, it's the Sports Doctor's in.
All right. Thank you, Sports Doctor, for checking in, and we'll check with you later.
Thanks, Todd.
Thanks, Dr. Bob. Really appreciate it. Again, that's Dr. Robert Weil. You can listen to Dr. Weil every Wednesday from 3 to 4 p.m. Central Standard Time at healthylife.net, which is Healthy Life Radio. And you can check out previous episodes at sportsdoctorradio.com.